Hey everybody, it's John from the Hustle Daily Show. Before we get into the news today, did you know that HubSpot launched an AI chatbot that helps you build awesome campaigns at scale with just a few prompts? It's called Campaign Assistant, and it's a totally free-to-use AI tool that will transform the way that you build marketing campaigns at scale. And the best part? It works seamlessly with all of HubSpot's marketing and sales tools to scale your output across email, social, and more. So AI your way into the most effective campaigns yet at HubSpot.com/campaign-assistant.
Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, June 21st. I'm Mark Dent, and I'm here with Rob Litterst and Jacob Cohen, and you're listening to the Hustle Daily Show. Today, we're going to talk about Apple. The company is locked in an IP struggle of its own doing that its opponents are considering a case of trademark bullying. But before any of that, let's talk about everything else happening in the world of business and tech. Yesterday, we discussed bad news about Pixar, but there's good news for theaters in general. According to Variety, the global box office increased 27% in the first quarter, a sign that more people are coming back to theaters. Some analysts have suggested that theaters may bring in close to $4 billion this summer, which would put it at near the same level as 2019. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The International Union of Cinemas has suggested that theaters still need a more consistent and diverse slate of releases for the industry to fully recover. Sticking to entertainment, TikTok and media company Candle Media Inc. have announced a partnership to develop content. Their plans will include working with underrepresented authors on Book Talk to develop film, TV, and audio projects. Candle Media is run by Kevin Mayer, a former TikTok CEO. Speaking of executives at Chinese companies, Alibaba has a new boss. Co-founder Joe Tsai has been named chairman of the e-commerce giant, and Eddie Wu will serve as the new CEO. This is the second major leadership change since 2019, which was when co-founder Jack Ma stepped down from his executive role. Moving on, drug maker Eli Lilly will acquire Dice Therapeutics for $2.4 billion. Dice Therapeutics is a biopharma technology company that develops drugs for autoimmune diseases. Finally, Tesla continues to share its charging wealth. The company made a deal with competitor Rivian to let Rivian drivers use any of Tesla's 12,000 superchargers starting next year. Ford and GM have inked similar agreements. On to our main story. Let's go back in time here a little bit. Around 5,000 years ago, humans began cultivating apples. About 111 years ago, a farmers' organization in Switzerland called Fruit Union Swiss was founded. They happened to use an apple in their logo. 47 years ago, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple Computer Inc. So you can see which one is the youngest. It would be Apple Computer Inc. But despite its lack of age compared to some of its peers, Apple has started to get aggressive when it comes to who can use a logo depicting an apple. And in the last few years, Apple has been going through several countries and filing IP requests to kind of crack down on depictions of apples as part of its trademark. And most recently, they've been going after this company that I just mentioned, Fruit Union Swiss. Rob, what exactly do you see happening here between Apple and Fruit Union Swiss?
Okay, so Apple specifically filed for IP rights in Switzerland on a black and white image of a Granny Smith apple with the Swiss Institute of Intellectual Property in 2017.
Right.
And they got some, but not all of those rights, and filed an appeal earlier this year. So the courtroom fight has kind of been going on. And as it continues, Fruit Union Swiss is concerned that if Apple receives broader rights, it might impact its ability to use its red Apple logo.
Wow. So basically, Apple is saying you're not allowed to use an apple in your logo if indeed they do get what they want.
Exactly, which is crazy because, as you mentioned earlier, Fruit Union Swiss was around, 70 years before Apple computers? So kind of a crazy precedent that it's setting here. Apple has done this before, and the Tech Transparency Project ran an investigation that found Apple filed 215 trademark oppositions between January 1st of 2019 and December 31st of 2021, including the Apples to Apples card game and a podcast about interdimensional witch doctor named Dr. Apples.
Wow.
Just really crazy. And honestly, it does kind of bring back memories. I think we all talked about Monster a little while back and just how they've been trademark bullies, but it does kind of throw shades of that into the mix.
Yeah, here's a couple others. These are according to Wired. Some other companies Apple has gone after. A singer-songwriter named Frankie Pineapple, a pair of stationery makers that have Apple in their company name, Apple Corp, which was the Beatles' music label. That lasted for decades.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah, it's really been going on all over.
It's going on all over. I think some important numbers here to emphasize this point. If you're looking at 118 of these oppositions that involved US or Canadian trademark applicants, 2/3 of them were targeting companies in completely different industries. 20% of them were related to education, which is a field that often uses apples in its imagery. And it's really just crazy how widespread they're going here.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, like we mentioned this with Monster, but smaller companies often just can't even afford the legal expenses to fight these claims. And so they might just change their name or logo because of the threat of having to pay these legal fees. So that's why they kind of call it bullying, because it literally is. Like it's actually kind of bullying these companies out of their name that they've chosen, which is just patently ridiculous, especially when a lot of these companies are in completely different fields than Apple. And there's really no reason that people would confuse the two.
Right. And so it's going to be at least a few months for this particular decision to be made in the Swiss courts. But the apple growers in Switzerland, they're already pretty concerned about this. They've said they cannot probably afford to really fight too much against Apple, and that it will cost them potentially millions if they have to rebrand because of the decision made by the courts. So it's more than likely not going to be a happy ending for that company no matter what. Okay, so let's move on to another big story that we wanted to talk about. And it's at least semi-related to Apple, because we're talking about an app store here. But it's not the app store that you have on your iPhones. It's potentially going to be a new type of app store for AI software. The Information has reported that OpenAI is considering creating their own version of this. Jacob, do we have any details of what this would really encompass, what it would look like? It sounds like it's very hypothetical, just like many things in AI these days.
Yes. What it would look like, how it would work, unclear. That is for sure. The company officially hasn't even confirmed this, but apparently it was discussed at a meeting with developers recently with OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. But essentially, it would mean OpenAI would launch a marketplace where customers could buy and sell AI models that can be customized to businesses' specific needs and markets. And according to the Information, examples of some companies that are already developing these kinds of models and tools using ChatGPT's tech that could one day use or sell their products on this marketplace include a company called Aquant, which makes software for device manufacturers to help guide customers through maintenance and repairs. Khan Academy, a lot of people have heard of, which developed Khanmigo, which is AI tutor, basically, for teachers and students. And another company called Fiscal Note, which is a tech provider for policymakers, which trained a version of ChatGPT to assist with political campaign messaging and things like that. And I think an important thing to note here is this is different from the ChatGPT plugins that connect to certain apps to do things like reserve a table at a restaurant or book a trip somewhere.
Right.
Sam Altman apparently has admitted that those haven't reached a point of product market fit yet. But I just think when you step back, this is interesting because it really shows how OpenAI has been inspired by Apple, the all-time GOAT of building platforms that digital economies are built on top of. It's very early days, but could have big ramifications down the road.
Could potentially be something that we're using every day, just kind of like how people are with the App Store now.
Absolutely.
In other words, we could have the new App Store for AI coming in, some sort of future. But one thing that we can guarantee is that under no circumstance should they use an apple for their logo.
That is true.
All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot podcast network. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clarke. We've got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter, so if you're not subscribed, go get signed up at thehustle.co/email. We'll see you tomorrow.
Let me tell you about a show that I've been loving lately. It's called Entrepreneurs on Fire. It's hosted by the incredible John Lee Dumas. It's available now on the HubSpot podcast network. Entrepreneurs on Fire stokes inspiration and shares strategies to fire up your entrepreneurial journey and create the life that you've always dreamed of. I'm a big fan of this podcast. It has energy, it has value, and it's all about learning about entrepreneurship. I was just listening to an episode the other day. JLD interviewed Jay Rogers, who was such a wealth of information. He kind of went into how entrepreneurship chooses you. You don't necessarily choose it, and that failure only happens when you stop trying to win. A lot of gems in this one, so I highly recommend checking out that particular episode along with the rest. So go listen to Entrepreneurs on Fire wherever you get your podcasts. Hey guys, if you listen to the Hustle Daily Show on Google Podcasts, we want to let you know that the option will no longer be available pretty soon. Google is sunsetting its podcast app sometime in early 2024 in favor of YouTube Music, and we want to give you a heads up before it's too late, since that time's almost here. The Hustle Daily Show is available everywhere and anywhere that you listen to podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're using YouTube Music, we are there as well. If you're an Android fan, there are plenty of apps like Overcast, Pocket Casts, Player FM, and more. So just search for us wherever you decide to listen to your favorite podcasts.